Hello my fellow nurses, in this video we'll be taking a look at the Holy Paladin in Dragonflight Season 1. This video is for people who have never played Holy Paladin, or a bit lost as to how the spec works in Dragonflight, or people just returning to the spec and want to know how it works now. With that being said, let's get right into it. Holy Paladin is a very strong healer with a lot of cooldowns under its belt, passive tank healing, instant and strong instant heals, while being able to also deal damage. Due to it being played and having two strong personal defensives, it also ranks up in the tankiness department with being the only healer that can make itself invincible with Divine Shield. While there look to be a lot of upsides, there are also downsides. Its mobility is close to a boat, with only Divine Seed being the saving grace, meaning you require strong positional awareness. Very cooldown dependent, and in some moments you will require, for example, Avenging Wrath for keeping your team alive. Holy Paladin is also not really good at healing people from a long range, due to its mastery and Light of Dawn working only in close range, leaving you a bit empty as to what you can use. And one last thing that matters based on the Mythic affix and how the tank pulls, Holy Paladin can also feel very mana hungry, due to you not really having any agency as to what spells you can use to heal. For example, sometimes being forced to use something not mana efficient, like Flash of Light due to the lack of holy power. From Shadowlands, we didn't really change that much. The only real losses, and that matters from what perspective you look at it, is that we lost Ashen Hollow, and if you remember, Mad Paragon is pretty much dead, basically plummeting the Holy Paladin damage compared to what it was before. But that's not really something bad. We managed to keep Divine Toll, making it a super solid panic button, and we received a 15-second interrupt and a battle res. We still keep the Beacon of Light gameplay, and being in melee is still the more efficient way, so overall it will feel very similar to Shadowlands if you come from that. For talents, I had success with two talent builds. The first one is very dependent on Holy Shock in combination with Dusk and Dawn, and also a very solid, easy to run tree you can use at the start while learning how to use the Holy Paladin spells. Running talents that buff Shock, like Crusader's Smite for lowering the cooldown of the spell, Divine Glimpse to increase its crit chance, Divine Insight for increased damage and healing, or the bread and butter talent Glimmer of Light. I also want to point out that there are two talents on the left side that can go somewhere else if you need them to be versatile. This improved cleanse point can go into improved blessing or whatever you need, but if you need improved cleanse, then you can use this other one down here that goes into Seal of the Crusader. If you don't need improved cleanse and protection, you can spend them onto Seal of Clarity down here. Here on the Holy side, we're more tied when it comes to changing talents. The only one that you can realistically change is the Light's Hammer talent. That can go into Light of the Martyr only if you need more instant answers to damage, but for the start, you can ignore it. The second talent tree will feel different and more useful towards pre-made groups for making use of the talent Blessing of the Seasons. The left side is pretty much the same, it's just adapted to the dungeon I was running when I made the screenshot. The right side is where most of the changes happen. We got rid of Light of Dawn, buffed talents, and buffed the Divine Toll and took Blessing of Seasons. Due to losing power in Light of Dawn and it going lower in priority in our spells, we're taking Martyr in case we need to heal more people and we don't have anything up. We also swapped to Moment of Compassion with Tower of Radiance to buff our flashlight on beacon targets. Again, feel free to play around with these talents, they're not set in stone and what works for me it might feel awkward for you. Test a bit and see what you like and what you don't like and work from there. For stats, as per usual we're going to want Haste and Versatility. Haste feels absolutely amazing on Holy Paladin, allowing you to cast more spells and get more holy power, making the spec even more fluid. With more holy power, your damage and healing output will also indirectly increase, so it's an overall win. Versatility is our second desired stat. This is to simply survive higher keys and not get one-shot in stupid ways. Combined with your plate armor, you're gonna feel like an absolute tank when hit by unavoidable damage or when you goof a mechanic. Item level takes priority in 99% of the cases, but also keep in mind that you shouldn't stress too much at the start. Just equip what you have and later on when you get to a higher item level, that's when you can focus on these. For trinkets, it becomes a bit harder if you don't rate as per usual. If you have the luck of rating, you can go for Broodkeeper's Promise and Whispering Incarnate Icon. These will probably be the best for you even if they are at lower item level, as trinkets are usually used for what they do, not necessarily for stats. If you don't rate, it becomes more annoying but not a deal breaker. Void Mandra's Shadow Gem and Static Charge Scale will work. The second trinket, the scale one, is pretty annoying to get since it's from a world boss, so if you get unlucky and not get it, then just get whatever onions you can get. Either way, at the start, they're not deal breakers. Just like stats, get whatever you can get at the start and try to work your way into these. Before we get into rotation specifics, we need to understand that Holy Paladin is a spender class, where we need to make sure we get Holy Power so we can use our more powerful spells like Word of Glory for single target healing, Light of Dawn for close range AoE healing, or Shield of the Righteous for damage. This Holy Power we will usually generate it with Holy Shock and Crusader Strike most of the time. You'll also want to be in melee range of the target you're attacking to make use of that Crusader Strike. Let's move on with the major cooldowns of the Holy Paladin. Avenging Wrath is probably your most versatile spell and should almost always be used on cooldown unless you know a very nasty trash pack is coming up. It basically jacks up our spells and allows us to use Hammer of Wrath on any target and at any HP percentage. Aura Mastery makes our current aura more powerful for 8 seconds. It's usually used with Devotion Aura, making our damage reduction more powerful and also increasing its range, usually used when you know upcoming damage is coming or trying to make rot damage more manageable. Divine Toll is gonna be our panic button for when everyone is low and we need to do something right now. It also generates Holy Power, so preferably we want to use this when we have spent all of it, as it can generate 5 Holy Power in a beat. Blessing of Protection is a very interesting external cooldown. It can make someone immune to physical damage, remove some physical damage debuffs, and also makes people lose their threat to mobs. Something to keep in mind is to not use the spell on your tank unless they ask for it. If you do, the tank will lose the threat to the mobs and they will start attacking your team. Blessing of Sacrifice is really strong in Dragonflight. With the talent that reduces the cooldown, it's a 1 minute 40% damage reduction for your teammate, allowing you to use it almost every pull on your tank or DPS, lowering the requirement of healing and negating sometimes one-shots. Moving on, your spec relies on passive healing too. This is accomplished with Beacon of Light, and with our talents we also get access to Beacon of Faith, its little brother. The Beacon of Light we will always keep it on our tank, so that's job done. The second beacon becomes a bit more interesting. You can either keep it on yourself, on a DPS that is more squishy, or on a ranged teammate. For example, if you have a team comp of 1 tank, 2 melee DPS, and 1 ranged DPS, then just throw your Beacon of Faith on a ranged target since your melees will be healed by your Light of Dawn, and indirectly you will also heal your range with it. At the start, you can simply use it on yourself to focus on other aspects of the spec, and when you feel more confident and more knowledgeable, you can throw it on someone else. Don't forget about your Holy Light and Flashlight. With the Divine Favor talent, these spells are gonna be jacked up and sometimes can save if you're not in melee to generate Holy Power, or you're behind in healing and need to do something really fast after using all your other spells. I'm also gonna talk about Blessing of Seasons if you do decide to use it. This is a pretty interesting spell. I'm gonna go over it very short, as it will make this video much longer than I already want, but every time you use it, it will change it to another blessing. Based on what season it is, you need to make a decision as to who will get it. This is a very general use case that I will throw up on the screen, as it's a spell I'm gonna be honest, I'm not very accustomed to since it was rarely used in the past and more recently people decided to go for it. Rotation wise, Holy Paladin is pretty simple, but it requires solid premeditation and decision making. In general, you want to try to heal with Holy Shock and 1 Holy Power spell, that means Word of Glory or Light of Dawn. And when these aren't available, we use one of the hard cast spells like Flash of Light and Holy Light. If talented, we can also use Martyr, but you should use these if you need to heal on the move and if the situation is really bad for your teammate. Word of Glory, we're gonna use it for when we need to heal only 1 target or someone that is pretty far away, and if we have 2 or more injured teammates next to each other, we would likely want to use Light of Dawn. Keep in mind that Light of Dawn also heals you, so you can use it for yourself and the melee next to you. You also want to avoid healing beacon teammates unless they're in absolute danger, due to the passive healing they will receive from healing other targets, allowing you to just use less spells and preserve more mana. For example, if all of our teammates have HP, unless your tank is in dire danger, you can ignore them and heal the rest of your team, indirectly healing your tank to full HP by just simply healing others. Avenging Wrath, at the start, I would recommend to use it almost on cooldown. Get experience with it, when it was useful and when not, because in higher keys, really good knowledge as to when to use wings will become mandatory to not wipe. It's a very strong spell that can turn your spec into an absolute beast. Keep in mind that you should always cast it first, not Holy Shock Crusader Strike and then Avenging Wrath, but Avenging Wrath, Holy Shock Crusader Strike, just so you do more healing and more damage overall. Keep a note that we have a lot of panic buttons if needed. Leo Hands heals 100% of your maximum health, basically saving your teammate in the blink of an eye if needed. Blessing of Protection will also make your DPS immune to physical damage, and if you see your teammate is getting hit by unavoidable damage, you can help with a Blessing of Sacrifice. You should also use Divine Shield to make yourself invincible and survive moments where you should die, or to simply ignore yourself and focus on your team for a few seconds while you catch up with the healing. Utility wise, you're also really strong. You have a 15-second interrupt in Rebuke, which will allow you to interrupt spells that will make your life harder if they go past. You have a stunning Hammer of Justice, and if used at the end of the cast, sometimes the mob will treat it as an interrupt and not cast that spell after the stun expires. You also have Blessing of Freedom to get rid of almost all of the movement impairment debuffs on you. If there's nothing to heal, then you're actually better off doing damage yourself. Holy Paladins have a pretty simple rotation. Basically, Consecrate next to the targets, a Light Hammer on top of them, Judgment one of them, usually the one with the most HP, Holy Shock, Crusader Strikes, and if you do need to heal anyone with Holy Power, throw in a Shield of the Righteous. If the mob is low enough that Hammer of Wrath is available, that can be used. You want to cast that to pretty much on cooldown. Overall, it's a pretty simple rotation and not much to really analyze here. This is also for both single and multi-target. And that's pretty much it. Interrupt, heal, do some damage, use your abilities, keep some beacons on your teammates, and that's it. If the video helped you, hit that like button, rest that subscribe button, and let me know in the comments below if I forgot something, since I'm pretty new to making guides. See you in the next one.